Hello, welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you've been here before. My name is Beth Ann. Today I'm doing my July wrap-up. It's August 16th. That's earlier than I thought I would do it, so yay, go me. So without further ado, I read 8 books in the month of July, which I think is a pretty good reading month for me, just overall. And I keep alluding to the fact that summer is absolutely crazy for me, so given that I was able to read 8 books despite how absolutely wild work is, I'm pretty proud of that. I read 3 fantasy books, 2 sci-fi, one book that's hard for me to categorize, which is Kindred by Octavia E. Butler. We'll get to that. 1 graphic novel, 1 thriller, and 1 nonfiction. And of all of those, I actually only have 2 in hard copy, which is a bit weird for me. A bunch of those were library books, so I've already returned them. One I unhauled, I did own it physically, and a couple have been Kindle reads. So, all right, what have I read? So, a couple of things I've already talked about on the channel, so I'll just cover those briefly at the end. Things that I haven't talked about yet. First, I finished Dragons of Autumn Twilight by Margaret Weis and Tracy Hickman, which is the first in the original classic Dragonlance trilogy, the Chronicles trilogy. And I'm not going to talk too much about it because I might just talk about all 3 of them once I'm done with this reread. If you'd like to hear more about my thoughts in the meantime, I actually just did a live show recently talking about the second book in that series, Dragons of Winter Night. And I did that with a bunch of people over on Pete's channel, Ponderings of Pete. So the other folks involved were John of Hey Y'all Listen Up, Evie, she was only Evie, Andrew from Andrew's Wizardly Reads, and Nico from Nico's Book Reviews. So I will link that down below. And I did read the first one, Dragons of Autumn Twilight, with John at Hey Y'all Listen Up, which was lovely because he had new insights for me on the series, partly because he originally read the series when he was a little bit older than me. He read it in college, whereas I read the series for the first time when I was in middle school. So it was interesting to hear sort of our different takes based on where we were emotionally when we first read the series. And then he also has the annotated version of the book, so he had all of these really cool snippets of things that Margaret Weis and Tracy Hickman have said about the books that they released in that annotated version. So that was really, really fun. Then other things I haven't talked about yet. So I listened to Ringworld by Larry Niven on Audible, which was sort of exactly what I expected for like very classic sci-fi. It's hard sci-fi. The characters sort of just like go off about wondering about technology and all of that, which is really cool to read, but it's also funny. The character can be in a life and death situation and they're like, now's the time to think about how like ion cannons or whatever was actually in that book, fundamentally works. So that's always funny reading sort of very classic hard sci-fi that does that sort of like stepping out of character almost. The characters are having these conversations or these thoughts, but it's like if you were a real person, you would not be doing that in this situation. But cool. I should say what it actually is. Ringworld, it was a really fun book to read. So humanity and some other alien races are faced with an end of the world universe sort of situation. The galactic core is going to explode or something. And this one group of humans sort of ends up on a wild adventure where they sort of inadvertently find what looks like it might be a haven where people could escape, or where beings could escape. And it's a ring world, and it's literally some other civilization made an artificial ring, huge, like billions of miles. It actually just like encircles a star, and it's a habitable, sort of a habitable planet turned inside out, because it's literally just like a ribbon that you can live on the inner surface of. And so the book is about them exploring that world and seeing how it works and how, like what happened in the history of that world. So it was definitely really fun. So then I also finished ＡCATA Warrior by Nnedi Okorafor, which is the second book. Oh, I forget what the series is actually called, but it's ＡCATA Witch and then ACATA Warrior. And I've been doing those as buddy reads with Katja Weinert, and I believe she actually hasn't finished ACATA Warrior yet, so I won't say too much about it. I did just want to mention that I thought ＡCATA Warrior was a lot better than ＡCATA Witch. I did talk about ＡCATA Witch and how I was disappointed with it in an earlier video, which I will link below if you want to go hear a bit more about that. But in a nutshell, the ending of the book just felt really rushed and sort of poorly constructed. And Okorafor has said that there was some issue, I think, with the publishing company and how that sort of happened. It definitely wasn't really her choice. And now, having read ＡCATA Warrior, I sort of see what ＡCATA Witch could have been at the end, because ＡCATA Warrior does it well, and it does have sort of a typical YA and fantasy feeling of things do sort of come together quickly at the end, but when it's set up pretty well, that works. And so ACATA Warrior is a good example of it working, and we have the same characters who are lovely, precocious children, and they're just exploring a magical world that's really new to our main POV character, Sunny, who's discovered sort of now that she's entering puberty that she actually has latent magical powers and is learning all about a magical world in the companionship of some really close friends, and they go on adventures and save the world, and it's really lovely. Okay, and then I read Kindred by Octavia E. Butler, which was a buddy read with Stephanie Cohen, who is not a booktuber, but is a lovely, enthusiastic booktube commenter. So that was really fun, just to have a bit more of that interaction with Stephanie. And Steph, I think I actually owe you, I still actually haven't finished reading that critical essay at the end, and I know I wanted to go back and reflect a bit more and give you some more comments once I've done that, so I will do that. Kindred, I thought was amazing, and I think she didn't like it quite as much as I did. And this was the book that's hard to categorize. It's not really sci-fi, even though there's time travel. It's not really fantasy, it's speculative fiction, I guess, because the main character, Dana, and this is a book that I actually have. Oh, and I had ACATA Warrior. These are the two that I still have hard copies of. Yay. But anyway, so in Kindred, Dana, the main character, is living in 1970s California, and sort of out of the blue is transported back in time and in place to, I guess rural Maryland, pre-Civil War. And it's because she has a white ancestor who's the son of a plantation owner, and they have some cosmic connection where he's drawn her back in time to intercede in a life endangering situation that he's in, and she saves his life, and she comes to realize a little bit what's going on, that he is her ancestor, and that presumably her entire line and her entire family sort of is relying on her saving his life, because she has no idea if she would just cease to exist if she lets him die, and she's sort of tempted to, because he's a white plantation owner in the pre-Civil War South. He's not that great a person, and well, I mean, he's also not that great a person in his own right. The book is about her sort of navigating some of this tension and the relationship that she does build with him, because she comes to know him over the course of a period of time, and the relationships with other people on the plantation that she builds, and there's just a lot of really cool themes explored in this book. So actually, I should dedicate a whole video to it, because as I'm sort of babbling about it now, I'm like, oh, but I would want to talk about that and that and that and that and that. So I just need to get my act together and do a whole video about this book. I really loved it. You can see I've got a lot of tabs that I wanted to come back to. So yeah, stay tuned. I'll probably do that in September. Okay, then I finished a science fiction book, WWW Watch by Robert J. Sawyer. I think the series is called WWW. This is the middle book in a trilogy, so I'm not going to say much about it now. I listened to the first book on audio several years ago, found it really enjoyable, and then this is the second book, and these books are about a teenage girl who was born blind, but her sight has actually been restored through technology. And then there's also an emerging AI in the World Wide Web, and the two of them become friends. And so it's a very cute story, but it also gets at some really, really cool things. So I enjoyed it. The one thing with it's a really well told story. The main character is great. All of the supporting characters I think are great and are fleshed out well. But Sawyer tries to pack in too much messaging into the book, and it would make sense that there would be lots of messaging around AI and sort of the ethics of the internet and that sort of thing, and there is, but then he sort of seizes every opportunity to get on a little soapbox or have a character get on a little soapbox about everything else. So we've got stuff about religion, we've got stuff about gay marriage, and it's like, I'm on board with you with all this stuff, dude, but it's taking me out of the story a little bit at this point. But still, super enjoyable book, and I think I will talk about that whole trilogy once I finish it, because I am going to finish it. And then the final book that I haven't talked about before on my channel is Me and White Supremacy by Layla F. Saad. I actually did mention it in some of my very early videos last fall, but I finally finished it. And Me and White Supremacy is a workbook, and so it's very short in terms of reading time, but it took me forever to work through it because you're really supposed to sit with each chapter, which is a little bit of background information and then a series of prompts that are designed for white people, written by a woman of color, to get you to really reflect on and inspect your white supremacy and your privilege. And so a lot of the prompts were really challenging, they were really hard, and I liked to just sort of sit with them and keep them in the back of my mind, and sort of see over the course of like a week or so, like what situations were playing into the specific prompts for that week. So that was a really cool book, lots of really cool exercises, and I think it's the sort of thing where like I want it to be just sort of part of my regular anti-racist education and practice, of just maybe every other year or something. I'm just going to slowly work through that book again and just be like, how have things changed for me, or what things have not changed, and like what do I need to work on in that moment. So that was just a really lovely resource, very easy to digest, so I highly recommend it for anyone who's trying to be more anti-racist and really grapple with their white supremacy, and would like tools to do so. I found it very helpful. Okay, so then just briefly, there are 3 books that I've already reviewed on my channel. So one was Witches Steeped in Gold by Shannon Smart, which is a fantasy that draws on Jamaican culture and some like Jamaican and sort of West African cultural folklore, magical traditions. And that book was really fun, but there was just too much action that happened off the page. And so we were constantly kind of getting told things and never shown them, particularly in like the things that were supposed to be development of the 2 main characters. And so that just drove me a little bit crazy. So as much as I really wanted to love that book, it sort of just ended up being an okay book, unfortunately. I will link to my review below. And then The Witch Boy by Molly Knox Ostertag, which is a middle grade graphic novel, which is beautifully done, but sort of like Witches Steeped with Gold, it just sort of hit me a little bit flat. It was like I expected to love it. There was everything about it was stuff that I should love, and it was just a little bit flat. So I also did a video about that and sort of thinking about that question in general of like, how do I publicly, not that that many people pay attention to me, but like, how do I assign in particular a rating on Goodreads and Storygraph to a novel that's not like written for me as an audience that fell flat for me, you know, like there wasn't anything wrong with it really. Like, yeah, I couldn't critique aspects of, you know, the structure of the graphic novel or anything like that. It just didn't quite grab me. Anyway, you can go watch me navel gaze about it in the video below. And then finally, a thriller, Home Before Dark by Riley Sager, BookTube darling. And I enjoyed that book. I just ripped right through it. It was super fun. And then I enjoyed ranting for like several minutes about plot holes in my review down below. So if you want to see the non-spoiler version, the first few minutes are non-spoiler, and then there are several minutes of spoiler version. But despite the ranting about plot holes, I did really enjoy that book. I thought it was a lot of fun and did what a thriller should do and just took me out of my situation, made me feel a little bit nervous and scared for the characters, a little bit creeped out. So it was a lot of fun. Okay, that's what I read in July. I'm still reading in August. I will probably have fewer completed books because things are even more crazy at work for me right now, and we're moving at the end of the next 2 weeks, which is my crazy period. So just see how it goes. All right. I hope you're all having a good month reading wise. Yeah, drop me a note down below. What are you currently reading? Do you have any vacation planned in August? Let's just chat a little bit, and I'll see you all in the next video. Thanks. Bye.